So we do some fun stuff on the show, but then we tighten the screws and we get down into the real nuts and bolts of what's happening. And we bring on a great guest right now to break down what's happening in our country. Dr. Salvatore Giorgianni Jr. is with us. He is a senior science advisor to Men's Health Network, past chair and chair emeritus of the American Public Health Association, board member of Columbia University School of Public Health in the past. And Dr. Giorgianni, thank you so much for joining us. I bet you love it when you come on a show and there's an Italian host who knows how to properly pronounce your name, first of all.
Oh, it's like music to my ears. Thank you.
I thought I saw you smile, and it's music to my ears when I see vowels at the end of the name, because I know we're getting a straight story. At least that's how I feel about it. So on Liquid Lunch, I tend to take the edge off a little when I'm really going crazy about what's happening in politics, and I have a cocktail here and there, you know, and that's one of the fun things we do on the show. We have cocktails. But today we're talking about a different type of cocktail. And according to you and others, what some of the treatments are giving Donald Trump a whole cocktail of different drugs to get him through the early stages here. What is the president experiencing right now from a drug cocktail standpoint?
Well, hopefully he's getting an awful lot better, and by all means that we can see, although we're not seeing the actual data, but just from what I've seen and others have seen, and just watching him and how he looked when he was going into Walter Reed and how he looked yesterday, and how I haven't seen him yet today, but he's doing much, much better by all outward appearances. The cocktail that he's receiving, and we've learned so much about how to treat COVID since this first emerged as a real problem in late February, March, that we're moving past some of the things with a lot of uncertainty and moving into protocols to treat which I think are very reasonably using multi-types of drugs to treat this virus. If folks think about all the symptoms that people have, everything from lost taste to gastrointestinal symptoms to headaches to blood clotting, to some of the signs that we've seen in kidneys and liver, as well as the pulmonary infusion that we've seen with COVID, you really need to take a medication approach. Lots of different medicines to treat the broad spectrum of things that this virus can do to you. So I think what he's getting now is making a big difference, and it's going to teach us a lot about how to appropriately, aggressively treat individuals with comorbidities in their 70s with this COVID virus.
So, Doc, let me ask you this. A little earlier, we had on David Dodd. He's the CEO of GeoVax, and they are working on some stem cell vaccine treatments. He said they take longer to come through, but they have more efficacy in the long run. But I have a lot of public interest attorneys come on the show. One in particular told me the current standard that the FDA is using, or at least allowing the drug companies to use for the efficacy and safety of this, really equates to a 50-50. He said it's like a coin flip. It may work on half the people, it may not work on half the people. Can people feel safe, in your view, that they're getting the straight story on this vaccine with it being sped to market like it is?
Yeah, that is a little bit of a concern. I think that's probably the regulatory standard. I'm not sure that the pharmaceutical companies that are pursuing this, the very large companies who've been making vaccines for a long time, John, Pfizer, GSK, AstraZeneca, J&J, I mean, they have been doing this a very long time. Moderna's a little bit newer in the game, but I think the government standard is the floor standard. Usually speaking, these companies try to beat that standard. Yet, it is very true that regardless of the vaccine you get, whether it's for hepatitis, whether it's for smallpox, whether it's for seasonal influenza, none of them really are 100%. There is very few things in medicine and pharmaceutical care that are 100%. So there's always going to be those things that change. And the other is we hope it doesn't happen, but it is possible to happen that the virus can mutate in a certain way that it becomes less effective for the vaccines that are being developed now. That's what we see with seasonal flu. We haven't seen that with other things. other viruses, such as measles, mumps, rubella, tetanus, things of that nature, polio. But we might see it with this. We just don't know. And then the third factor is that you really need to be able to treat the individuals who have the infection in the first place. So, along with the viruses, because there's no 100% protection, you need to have development of these other modes of management, whether they be convalescent antibodies, the semi-synthetic antibodies that Regeneron's been developed, that were used in Mr. Trump, or other agents, the adjunct agents to treat the virus. Those are very important.
So,
but yeah, nothing's 100%.
Let me ask you this. You are a senior science advisor to Men's Health Network, okay? I am a man, and I am quite the healthy specimen. And I think I can attribute much of my healthiness to the fact that I start drinking every day at noon on liquid lunch. Would you be able to weigh in on if that's a good science project to continue?
To keep drinking at liquid lunch? Well, I drink a lot of the sodas and juice, so I guess that's fine. If it's alcohol, we do believe, and there have been warnings from individuals in the public health community, that alcohol is not a good thing. Now, you have to take into account that they're talking to a generalized public. We don't know, the people who are listening to the messages that we give, they might have liver damage, they might have kidney damage, they may have pulmonary damage, they might have other predisposing conditions. So you really have to take the broadest and safest possible view, which is to limit alcohol. I think for most adults who have generally good health, that a drink or two is not going to dramatically influence your ability to fight the infection. But you have to take all of that into context. If you're in your 70s, 80s, and 90s, a drink or two might. So I think it all is relative. Anti-inflammatory properties of wine are sort of known, but again, as my grandmother would say, everything in moderation. You see.
I see. So, yeah, me particularly on liquid lunch, I tend to have a cocktail or two during the show to stay calm. But there was all this noise years back that red wine is actually good for you. A glass or two of red wine every day. Is red wine the thing to do if you're going to have a drink?
Well, I don't know if red wine is the only thing, but red wine does have a little bit of resveratrol, which is the antioxidant property to red wine that helps reduce inflammation and such. I think you need a lot more resveratrol content than you're going to get from a drink of wine, a glass of wine every day. But certainly, if you want antioxidants, and a lot of antioxidants, you'd be better off with good quality tea than an awful lot of red wine. So again, I think it's all a matter of moderation and your underlying medical conditions. Some people, they just can't handle it because they have compromised livers or kidneys, and it's a bad thing. So I don't want to generalize, but I think the rules of common sense in the era of COVID still matter. You can't let COVID overtake your life any more than you can let the threat of cancer, prostate cancer for the guys, for example, overtake your life, or breast cancer for women overtake. You have to be appropriately cautious.
Got it. Well, I was quite excited when I saw the rundown today that you were coming on. We finally got a good Italian doctor on who I could believe in. And I saw he's going to talk about cocktails that President Trump is being given. So I thought you were going to weigh in on some healthy cocktails. But you're a great sport, Doc. I really appreciate you joining us. And we got to have you back. You're an amazing authoritative voice on this stuff. And there's way too much bullcrap out there in the news. So will you join us again?
Very confusing. Yeah, it's very confusing. And that's one of the things that I think I find interesting about the way the media is covering things. They say stick with the science, listen to the scientists, follow what the scientists say. But then when we have some of the best physicians in the world treating one of the most important people in the world, they want to second guess
question the science
as the other. And I think that's just a little bit inappropriate.
No doubt about it.
I'll be happy to come you like.
Great. Dr. Salvatore Giorgianni Jr., thank you very much. And thank you guys for sticking with us. We're going to raffle off some sheets, 1,200 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets are coming to one lucky viewer right after this. Don't go nowhere. We're going to spin to win.